Hello and welcome to Car Retrospective, where in today's episode we are looking at what happens when a luxury car brand meets the world of the race circuit, the Lexus LFA. Let's have a look. The LFA had a very long development time, as it was around 10 years from the initial spark of inspiration to the car eventually launching. Lexus itself had launched in the late 1980s as the luxury marque under the Toyota brand. In fact, the brand launched in a similar time period to Nissan's luxury brand Infiniti and Honda's luxury brand Acura. Acura in particular had had an amazing launch in the US with what can only be described as a perfect halo car, the NSX, which launched in 1990. You can watch the episode on said car in the top right. Lexus also had a good launch with models like the LS400, but they never saw an idyllic halo sports car like Acura did. However, talks began in 2000 about Lexus actually going ahead and building something more powerful and faster than their usual luxurious range. The idea started at Toyota's purpose-built Shibetsu Proving Ground, a testing circuit with terrains and roads similar to those found all over the world. After using the track in a number of tests, Toyota designer Haruhiko Tanahashi came to the conclusion that the place would be the perfect environment to test and develop a supercar. He and a few other colleagues, including chief test driver Hiromu Naruse, began sketching out what this thing might look like. However, Toyota, and by proxy Lexus, weren't brands known for producing low-volume one-offs. They were all about mass export volume, so a supercar of this sort might not fly. The board would need some convincing. Narude approached Akio Toyoda, and by the name you may guess that he had some direct ties to the Toyota brand, and you'd of course be correct. Despite him being the current president of Toyota, at the time he had much less power, but was still very enthusiastic about the idea, which was an almost certain green light given his name. However, his problem was how this supercar would fit in with the Toyota brand. In time though, he soon came to realise that this supercar would actually fit quite nicely in the Lexus brand instead. At first this seems ludicrous. How would a supercar fit in with a luxury brand? Well, like how the NSX helped launch Acura in America in the 1980s, this new supercar could help launch Lexus in Japan. Yes, you heard me correctly. From its launch in 1989 until 2005, Lexus did not exist in the Japanese domestic market. Any Lexus models released in Japan were simply rebadged as Toyotas. When it was decided to introduce Lexus to the Japanese market, Akio took this opportunity to have the supercar be the sporting flagship of the new Japanese Lexus, and with that the project was given the go-ahead, with one condition: numbers were to be capped at just 500 units. While disappointing initially, perhaps the apparent exclusivity could play in the car's favour. Work then commenced. The first prototype would then go on to show itself in June of 2003, with it being regularly seen undergoing tests at the Nürburgring. This wasn't the only concept of the LFA, and the project saw multiple. The first was officially shown publicly in January of 2005 at the North American International Auto Show. However, at this point it was announced that the LFA was only a design study and not intended to go into full production. It featured some nifty design cues, most notably featuring cameras mounted in the wing mirrors, a futuristic addition that started popping up in production cars recently. After this it starts getting rather jumbled. Some concepts featured a V8, some a V10, and there were even reports that some featured a hybrid design. It was clear that Lexus was struggling to settle on what would best fit the supercar, especially now that they'd launched their first sports sedan, the ISF, which gave them a better idea of what would suit the monstrous vehicle. The launch of the ISF also saw the launch of Lexus's new F-Mark, the high-performance division of the company, the LFA to be the second child of this new division. At this point there was also a roadster version unveiled with a 5-litre V10 making 500 horsepower with a quoted top speed of over 200 miles per hour. Finally, after 9 years of testing and drawing up concepts, Toyota publicly announced the production of the LFA, with the team finally settling on a V10 powerhouse. This one was a 4.8 litre model making 533 horsepower and having a red line at 9,000 RPM. The engine itself was also very light, even lighter than Lexus's own 3.5 litre V6, and this made the LFA itself very nimble, much more than if it was to be fitted with a more standard V12 or V8. It was able to go from idle to redline in just over half a second, which is insane to be honest. Orders were opened in October of 2009. This would then culminate in Lexus specially selecting buyers, as well as opening a lease program to prevent said buyers selling the LFA off for profit. And it's safe to say that this selling for profit would have come easy, as the final LFA was a thing of beauty, the sharp edges and cut-offs only possible through the carbon fibre design. The sound too is regularly brought up. Many describe the angelic whine of the LFA's V10 as the best engine sound ever. Surprisingly, there is an explainable reason for this, and that was the fact that the engine was designed in collaboration with Yamaha, a company not only affiliated with producing motorcycle engines, but also musical instruments. Yamaha supposedly took extra care to make sure the V10 produced a beautiful sound. The car literally has music woven into its DNA. Simply put, the LFA was designed to be the halo car of the 21st century. Everything about it was tinkered with endlessly until absolutely perfect. In March of 2010, Lexus unveiled the Nürburgring package, little doubt what it was named after, this being the circuit-tuned variant of the car, featuring canards on the front bumper, a huge rear wing, a new front splitter, a retuned race transmission and 10 extra horsepower. Buyers of the Nürburgring edition would also get training sessions on the circuit the car was named after, as well as a 1-year pass on the track. Not a bad deal if I do say so myself. In September of 2011, the Nürburgring package would clock a lap time on its namesake of 7 minutes and 14 seconds, which was one of the fastest road legal laps of the time, and it still stands fairly high up today. However, despite the LFA being praised by almost everyone who drove it, the extremely high asking price, especially compared to peers such as the Nissan GT-R, and the apparent exclusivity of it meant that Lexus struggled to shift all 500 models of the LFA. Lexus announced in 2017 that there were still 12 brand new unsold LFAs sat on their lots. While most of these have been snatched up since, there are supposedly 4 models still to be bought. So if you have, I don't know, 500,000 sat around, then perhaps this is your lucky day. And there it is, the Lexus LFA. If ever there was a car that embodied the idea of passion and no compromise, it's this thing. Despite a long and arduous development that began with a lot of corporate opposition, the LFA pushed through and still managed to be one of the best supercars ever built. And I have to agree with Clarkson on this one, it really does seem to be one of the most magnificent things in the world. Thank you so much for watching, with a very special thanks to Ben Wright and Brum Brum Brin, who are very generously donating at the highest tier on my Patreon. Just £1 a month is an amazing help, and I also have a Discord server and an Instagram page, links in the description below. Again, thank you for watching, and take care.